In journalism, plagiarism and fabrication are considered the primary sins of the profession. Many journalists have lost their jobs or face legal action for lifting others' writing or other production. In this video, Fixgerald examines some instances of plagiarism in media and discusses its impact on the careers and reputation of even the most established and decorated journalists. In 2003, Jayson Blair was a 27-year-old promising young journalist working at the New York Times. He was the second African-American editor-in-chief of the student newspaper at the University of Maryland, and after a summer internship at the New York Times, he was offered a full-time position. In November 1999, he was made an intermediate reporter and later promoted to a full reporter before finally making editor. But in April 2003, national editor James Roberts asked Blair about the similarities between his story and a story published by Macarena Hernandez in the San Antonio Express-News, and from there opened up a can of worms. It seems that he had plagiarized quite a few articles during his employment with the New York Times. In February 2003, his piece titled "Peace and Answers: Eluding Victims of the Sniper Attacks" claimed Blair was in Washington, when, in fact, he had plagiarized quotations from a Washington Post story and fabricated quotes from a person he had never interviewed. In the March 2003 story, relatives of missing soldiers dread hearing worse news, Blair claimed to be in West Virginia, but he allegedly plagiarized quotations from an Associated Press article. In the April 2003 piece, Rescue in Iraq and a Big Stir in West Virginia, Jayson Blair said he covered the lynch story from Palestine, West Virginia, but it turned out that his entire story was parts of rearranged details from other Associated Press stories. There are much more. 36 out of the 73 articles he wrote contained instances of plagiarism, fabrication, or unethical practices. After all those internal investigations, the New York Times reported on Blair's malpractice as a journalist and detailed his story in a 7,000-word front-page write-up titled "Times Reporter Who Resigned Leaves Long Trail of Deception." Plagiarism in journalism and the media is taken much more seriously compared to plagiarism in academic essays. As a journalist, you have to work with several sources, conduct interviews, and sometimes travel to ensure the information you're putting down is 100% factual. Because if you don't, you risk spreading misinformation or ruining your reputation. In the case of Jayson Blair, it ended his career. It comes down to ethics. Journalism has everything to do with research into fashion, music, politics, environment, and much more, making plagiarism easier to notice and bring as evidence in a court of law. But plagiarism in journalism isn't limited to content from other people's work. Self-plagiarism is also a major issue. Case in point, the story of Jonah Lehrer, who found himself in the middle of a controversy for self-plagiarizing. At the age of 31, Lehrer had published 3 books and written for some prestigious newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal, the Boston Globe, and the New York Times. It turns out, though, that Lehrer had used content from his earlier books in his newer articles, and this included copy that he had written for other companies, which were flagged for copyright infringement. Not only that, reporter Michael C. Moynihan proved that Lehrer's book, Imagine How Creativity Works, had fabricated several quotes from Bob Dylan. Scandals like this call into question your journalistic integrity, so these cases opened Lehrer up to scrutiny. Then, people began finding other instances of malpractice, and found that he had fabricated quite a lot of information during his time as a journalist. It isn't traditional plagiarism, but it is still an ethical violation, because journalists are supposed to be the arbiters of truth. Making information up is a form of lying. Kavya Viswanathan, Lloyd Brown, Nada Beziz, and Maureen Dowd are similar cases of fabrication and plagiarism in the field of journalism, and they are all examples of how this can affect your reputation in the long term. If you found this video helpful, we have a longer article on plagiarism in journalism on the Fixgerald website, where we also discuss how you can avoid plagiarism. We'll leave the link for that down below. You can also use the Fixgerald plagiarism software to check your own articles, essays, website copy, research papers, reports, and more to ensure that you are not accidentally copying someone else's work. Check it out, and thanks for watching.